Thank you, Commissioner LaBarbera. The next meeting is the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, which will be chaired by Vice Chair Jeff Limpert. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is being held in public session in its entirety. At this point, I ask the Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the committee and any commissioner recusals on the item before the committee.
The committee is composed of Vice Chairman Linford, the committee chair, Chairman O'Toole, the committee vice chair, and Commissioners Helmy, LaBarbera, and Rosado. All committee members are present. In addition to the committee members, Commissioners Bolwage, Vine, Kelly, and McCabe are also present. There are no recusals with respect to the capital performance results, as it is for information only. With respect to the Port Newark matter, Chairman O'Toole is recused.
Thank you. For our first order of business, I call on our Chief Development Officer, Derek Utter, to present the capital performance results for the first half of 2024. Derek.
I'm going to start off by saying we have continued to press ahead with key projects while managing our spending carefully this year. Coming out of COVID, our capital budget dramatically fell. We have gotten back this year to budgeting about $3.5 billion. That was kind of our amount that we were budgeting, roughly speaking, prior to COVID. So this year, to report on the first half results, we spent about $1.2 billion of that $3.5 billion budget, which is up about $300 million from the first half of last year. We're still slightly below our budgeted amount. We had budgeted about $1.5 billion for the first half of the year, so we're about 80% of our budget. I'll explain some of the reasons for that in a moment. We also achieved 91% of our planned schedule milestones on target and a number ahead of target as well. So this gives you the historical perspective. If you look at the far right, you'll see the first half of the year in terms of spending relative to plan. We were at, as I said before, 80%. The main underspending projects are the three that are listed here. The roadway, utilities, ground transportation center, which is the largest portion of the Port Authority work. The terminals are being funded by developers. We're funding the roads, utilities, and ground transportation center. So it's a very, very large $1 billion-plus project. The Newark Air Train replacement, which is in a procurement right now, and so we're still in the process of working through to select bidders for various components of that. And lastly, the Midtown Bus Terminal, which is in basically the same position. We're in the early stages of the procurements, and so we haven't gotten to the large construction dollars. In some ways, those latter two, because of the exact timing of procurements, if you're off by a few months, it dramatically affects the spend. And what we try to do is reserve capital in our budget so we don't slow down based on our capital plan capacity. So we try to reserve enough capacity that we can move forward those as aggressively as possible. In terms of on-time results, 39 of 43 planned milestones achieved ahead or on target, which is good. That's our goal is to try to stay at 90% or above. And for the first half of the year, we are trending in that with that goal in mind. You'll see that last year we were well below that, and we put into effect a lot of initiatives this year to really focus on process improvements that had slowed us down last year. A lot of these things were pre-construction. As you recall, we have two milestones. One is the award of the contract that ends the pre-construction phase, and then the completion of construction, which ends the project being done. In the pre-construction phase last year, we had a number of instances where we got off track, and we have very much focused on trying to stay on track this year and improve our performance there. That includes 13 milestones that were planned for later in this year. Those were achieved early in addition to the 39, which we achieved on time. Just to end, some of the major projects that these lists, I think, always give you a sense of the scale of the projects. We have the headline projects that people see and hear about, big new terminals at airports. We also have a lot of very small projects. Many of these are state of good repair projects. But the important part is that we continue to make progress and move these through the system, because generally they're in the $5, $10, $20 million range. Of note, on the contract award side, we awarded the George Washington Bridge underside of the lower level structure long-term rehabilitation. We also awarded the runway rehabilitation at Teterboro. And then you'll see on the ones that were completed constructions, we call that put into beneficial use. The World Trade Center construction of the property management facility, that was one of the key final pieces of finishing some of the World Trade Center infrastructure work that we've been working on. So I will conclude there and take any questions.
Thank you, Derek. Excellent progress. Do any commissioners have any comments or questions regarding this report? Hearing none. Next, I call on our Director of Port Department, Beth Rooney, to present an item that would authorize a project for the reconstruction of berths 10 and 12 at Port Newark. Beth?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So I want to talk about the reconstruction of berth 10 and 12 today and seek your approval for contract authorization. So there we go. So berth 1012, located in Port Newark, is just over 1,000 linear feet. It's used for what we call a public berth being one that is able to be used on a day-to-day basis by ships that are not operating on a fixed schedule like the container ships. So in this case, berth 1012 is used for dry bulk operations, including types of cargo such as road salt and paving bricks. This berth has been out of service since 2001 due to advanced deterioration, but in the Port Master Plan, which we completed in 2019, this area is critical to the development of what we call our bulk district, which you will see outlined there in the yellow. So the scope of the project that we're seeking authorization today is to demolish the existing wood structure and then follow that with the reconstruction of a wharf to modern design standards. Instead of using wooden piles, which we know are subject to the environment, we will instead use concrete-filled steel piles, steel sheet pile bulkheads, and other modern materials. We'll also increase the capacity of the berth from what is today 500 pounds per square foot to 2,000 pounds per square foot to sustain future dry bulk operations, and we'll build in the additional capacity to handle what we would expect with resiliency measures for things like stormwater and sea level rise. The total project cost is $197.6 million. You can see here the breakdown of that cost from construction to planning and engineering, contingencies, and others. Notably here, $32 million of the total project cost is being funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation under a port infrastructure development grant program that we secured. In terms of the schedule, with your approval, we would move forward in the third quarter of this year to determine the optimal project delivery method, whether that be a design build or a design bid build. We would then, by the end of the year, move into the procurement phase and stage 3 with the final design. And then we expect to begin with the award of construction in the third quarter of 2026. It'll take about 2.5 to 3 years to finalize construction and bring that berth back into service by the end of 2028. So with that, I would ask that the board authorize the project for reconstruction of berth 1012 in Port Newark at a total cost of $197.6 million.
Thank you, Beth Ann. May I please have a motion from a committee member who is not recused on this matter to move the item forward for consideration by the full board?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion is passed. This concludes today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, and I turn it over to our chairman.